النار ولع.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syrian Analysis. I'm your host, Kirk Almasian. Please let me know if my voice is sounding clear in the comments below. I would really appreciate that. The Gaza Strip has lived its worst night a few hours ago, yesterday night. I've been following the bombardment of the Gaza Strip since 2007, and I haven't seen anything like this before. It was hell on earth. And I hope Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and all other so-called intellectuals. By the way, I learned a lot from Jordan Peterson and his teachings, and in my personal life, in my career, and everything. I lost all my respect. I boycott him now. I do not follow his work. I do not follow his social media accounts. I do not care what he says, and I do not care how he justifies his positions. These people, they participated in the misery of the Palestinians, and they have so much hatred against the Palestinians, and it seems against the Arabs, and especially Ben Shapiro, and they do not care how many Palestinians will die, will be slaughtered. Those are only the two videos that I was able to find for you, and I'm probably able to show you without getting canceled or deplatformed on YouTube and other platforms. The rest, guys, it's like from a zombie movie. If you see the videos in the aftermath today in the morning when the people woke up and they were trying to dig into the rubble and find their relatives, family, father, mother, sister, daughter, sons under the rubble, if you have any humanity left in you, if you have any conscience left in you, you would cry. Unless, of course, you're a monster. And I'm sure the followers of Syriana analysis are not monsters. And I'm sure at the same time that there are many monsters, unfortunately, living between us and among us, and they look like us, humans, but they're not humans. I cannot believe that in the 21st century, in 2023, we witnessed first ethnic cleansing we witnessed in Nagorno-Karabakh in Artsakh, where Azerbaijan ethnically cleansed 120,000 Armenians and forced them to leave their land. And now we are witnessing another ethnic cleansing in front of our eyes. I'm a third generation survivor of the Armenian genocide, and I thought naively, I was naive enough to think and to believe that if the Armenian genocide happened in 2023, it wouldn't have happened because people are active politically, there are cameras, social media, so it won't happen. But it happened in front of our eyes in Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, and it's happening now in the Gaza Strip in front of our eyes, and everybody's documenting it. And the Gaza Strip was not the only place that was bombed yesterday. Biden he authorized airstrikes against Syria, and he bombed what the Pentagon calls Iranian proxies. And I'm going to focus on the first half of this video on these strikes against Syria, and I will tell you why it is very dangerous, and we are heading slowly but surely, step by step, to regional war with international dimensions. And lots of people were warning us that Trump will send us to World War III. And it seems that those people who voted for Biden in order to allegedly avoid World War III, their candidate and their president, Biden, is sending the word to World War III. And I'm not defending Trump. I'm just saying this was the case when the elections happened. Now that Biden authorized attacks against Syria, they say with precision strikes in Syria, Biden tries to avoid lighting a powder keg. Everything we have done, the additional forces, the messaging, is intended to prevent escalation, one US official said. Only in the US mind and in this mindset that governs the United States, only the use of force, in their opinion, avoids escalation. US airstrikes on Iran backed militant groups in Syria on Thursday night may have felt familiar, but they come amid a far more volatile situation in the Middle East. Back in March, Iran backed militant groups used drones and missiles to strike a base housing US troops in the Middle East. a US contractor died and American troops suffered brain injuries, the US responded by bombing warehouses and other logistical hubs. This time around, the militant attacks were larger in scope, and the Israel Hamas conflict threatens to cause more turmoil in the region. So, this week's US airstrikes were carefully calibrated to keep the regional situation from getting even worse. As I told you, it's only in the United States they believe that if they use force and if they bomb other countries, this will avoid escalation. It just goes against logic. And I will tell you why this escalation happened from what they call Iranian backed proxies. Those are, first of all, Syrian forces. Okay. They are Syrian personnel and Syrian soldiers and Syrian fighters. They call them Iranian backed militias. Okay. They're back. Iran, the Syrian army is supported also by Iran, just like other players in the region. Let's accept, let's say, that term. But why did these so-called Iranian-backed militias escalate against the United States? Because the United States sent its warships to the Mediterranean and to the Middle East, and they're threatening for regional war and threatening with regional war. Therefore, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Hezbollah, Hamas, and all this alliance, they're sending a message to the United States, telling the United States that if you bomb and escalate and start a regional war with your warships, this is how our response is going to be. There is going to be a coordinated response on Syrian soil, on Iraqi soil, and from Yemen and from Lebanon. This is the message. Okay. Now Biden comes and bombs Syria, and this is a message also to this alliance, the anti-Israeli alliance in the region, that we are going to hit Syria. And I'm going to come and tell you where the Americans bombed and why, just briefly. So, the operation against two facilities used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including an ammunition storage area, came after American forces suffered 19 drone and rocket attacks in Syria and Iraq this month. They led to the injuries of 21 service members, 19 of whom were diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. This is the Pentagon giving a statement on these recent attacks.
Between October 17 and 18 Eastern Time, 21 U.S. personnel received minor injuries due to drone attacks at Al-Assad Air Base, Iraq, and Al-Tanf Garrison, Syria. And as we've highlighted, all members returned to duty. At Al-Tanf Garrison, so during those 2 days, at Al-Tanf Garrison, there were 17 U.S. personnel who sustained minor injuries, 15 of whom were diagnosed with TBI, traumatic brain injury. At Al-Assad Air Base, 4 personnel were diagnosed with TBI, but no other injuries. And again, in all cases, members returned to duty. There have been no injuries or no reported cases of TBI since the 17th and 18th of October. But again, we'll continue to keep you updated. As I mentioned in the statement that I put out last night, as we've seen in the past, there are situations where several days after an attack, a member may self-report, ringing in the ears, headaches, and subsequently diagnosed as TBI. So those numbers can fluctuate.
So let's try to minimize this again. Okay. So
I've opposed efforts to ban.
I apologize for that. So U.S. officials, they granted an anonymity to discuss sensitive interior deliberations set to the Politico, while the main goal was to ward off further Iranian-supported attacks on Americans. Another was to make sure the broader Middle East conflict didn't go. The U.S. this month has rushed several ships, fighter planes, and air defenses to the region to protect American forces and make adversaries think twice before attacking again. Biden and his team have repeatedly offered a one-word message to regional players who may want to exploit the Israel-Hamas conflict for their own purpose. Don't. Iran and the Lebanese militant group and political party Hezbollah have been the administration's main concern, according to them. But this is not the really case. I will come back to that later. As the US orchestrated its response to the recent flurry of strikes, planners took the broader Middle East dynamics into account. It was vital to send a strong message without offering such a massive response that it would prompt another retaliation, leading to tit-for-tat fighting that eventually could light a powder keg, said two of the officials. An American contractor died of a heart attack on October 18th while sheltering from what turned out to be a false alarm at Al Assad Air Base in Iraq. I truly do not understand if I have to laugh or cry about this, because soldiers are going to Iraq and Syria to protect the empire's interests, and they die from a heart attack because of a false alarm. I don't know. Anyways, even though the person's death was not a direct result of military action, the Biden team decided that stronger action was needed, the official said. Ultimately, the sites in Syria near Abu Kamal were chosen because the US doesn't ask Damascus for permission to strike. Iraq would certainly require that, and because they were linked to Iran Islamic Revolutionary Ground Corps, to Iran's paramilitary arm. The facilities were used by Iranian proxy groups to store ammunition directly tied to the recent attacks, said it. Okay, now this I'm going to accept this narrative that those are Iranian backed and everything. This is what the United States says. So this is the place of the attack, guys. You see this blue place? Okay, good. This is where the American forces are stationed. Why the American forces are here? I will just remove this everything for you, just to explain. This green area is occupied by the United States, and these yellow areas are all occupied by the United States. So 1/3 of Syria is occupied by the United States. We know this yellow part because the Americans want to occupy the oil and gas fields that are here, if you can see on the mouse here. Okay. But why do they occupy this area? What is the importance of this area? Because Syria and Iran and Iraq, they used to use this very important route. As you can see, it comes from here and it goes all the way to Iran. You see? So this route that connects Tehran to Baghdad to Damascus, all the way here, it was instrumental and very important to create an alliance and also the integration of these three countries together on a security level and military level. Of course, Iran sends weaponry to Syria as well. Syria and Iran are strategic allies. So they used to use this route to get the weaponry and coordination and everything, also trade between these three countries. So the United States came and occupied this area in order to block this route and block Iran, Iraq, and Syria to come closer together. So what did the Syrians and the Iranians did? They went here, this area, you see this area, and they opened a new route. Okay, so they are using this route now. This is where they call Abu Kamal, where the strike happened, and this is Al Qaim. So this is the route that they are using right now to connect again Baghdad. See this route, Baghdad, Iran, and Baghdad and Tehran. So that's why the United States always bombing here, because they don't want Iran and Baghdad, or Tehran, Baghdad, and Damascus to have this trade and also security route between each other. And rest assured, guys, there is a plan now by the United States to occupy this Al Qaim area. They want to occupy this, they want to seal all this area. So they want to expand this green and occupy all this area, okay? So that they block completely any access from the Syrian side to Iraq and from Iraq to Syria, and eventually between Iran and Iraq and Syria. And this is a red line, or this is the red line for this alliance. If the Americans try to expand or try to seal this, there will be response against them. So this is why these regional countries are attacking the United States in this area. So you have to ask a question here, right? If you're an American, especially, what are the American forces doing here? And what are the American forces doing here? Who invited them? Nobody. And I'm going to come to that very quickly. And I will give some political analysis again that I posted today on Twitter. So this is another article by the Time. As Biden responds to Iran-linked attacks with airstrikes, fears of a wider war grow. Unlike the Politico article, now here in the Times, they fear of a regional war. Biden is hoping to convince Tehran to end the conflict before things go too far, according to the Times. But escalating to stop things from further escalating requires a delicate touch, and some observers in the region fear Iran's leaders have no interest in pulling back now. If an attack by Iranian armed groups manages to kill any US troops, Biden would be under tremendous pressure to respond forcefully. Crocker, who is Ryan Crocker, a retired diplomat who served as ambassador across the Middle East, including Lebanon, Kuwait, Syria, Pakistan, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So Crocker says if an attack by Iranian armed groups manages to kill any US troops, Biden would be under tremendous pressure to respond forcefully, bringing the US closer to direct war with Tehran. I truly believe that if they want to spare their soldiers, probably the best thing to do is to leave the region for the people of the region instead of trying to stick their nose and meddle in the domestic affairs and the regional affairs and the foreign affairs of these countries. This may be just an idea. Anyways, which illustrates just how quickly the conflict that started with Hamas's massacre in southern Israel could end up spinning into a wider war with devastating consequences. US military forces in the Middle East are on high alert for additional attacks. Biden has deployed the powerful USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier group in the eastern Mediterranean in a show of force designated to prevent conflict in the region from spreading beyond between Israel and Hamas. Does anyone, guys, believe that the United States has sent all these aircraft carriers to prevent the conflict from spreading in the region, or they're preparing to spread the conflict in the region? It's like everything they say, in my opinion, I just take the opposite. And I truly believe that all these aircraft carriers are not here to prevent the spread of the conflict, but they are here to spread the conflict in the region. And this is what Israel wants. And I will come to that later. Another carrier group, the USS Dwight Eisenhower, is sailing toward the Mediterranean, will eventually move to the Persian Gulf, putting it in waters off the coast of Iran, defense officials say. Like, imagine if Iran sent its warships, or Russia sent its warships off the coast of the United States or anywhere close. Like, there is this American exceptionism, right? Everything that the United States does is for the sake of humanity, or it's allowed. But the other way around, it never happens. Do you realize that? Beyond the carrier groups, the US also has jets stationed at Incirlik Air Base in southern Turkey and has added additional fighter jets to the region. And the three-ship Batan amphibious ready group, which holds 1,000 Marines, is on high alert nearby. So Turkey hosts American base. They have how many how many fighter jets? They have so many fighter jets there in the Incirlik Air Base, and they have forces there. And Erdogan comes, he came yesterday or today, I don't know, I will show you the video later, and he pretends that he's championing the Palestinians and he's with the Gaza Strip. This guy is Erdogan is the most hypocritical politician when it comes to Palestine. He uses the Palestinian case to gain votes and to gain the love and the hearts and the minds of the people in the Arabic world. He's doing this since 20 years, and the Arabs, so many people in the Arab world, they never learned this lesson, and they would always fall for the same thing, for the same trap, and they will keep cursing, for example, Iran. They keep cursing Bashar because they're not from a Sunni sect, and they hate him, so many Arabs. And then they praise Erdogan, who has American troops on his land, and he has Israeli embassy in Ankara, right? So if he is really, in my opinion, genuine about his support to the Palestinians, at least, how about closing down the US airbase or the Israeli embassy, right? Anyways, there are also US troops stationed at Al Assad Air Base in Iraq and Al Tanaf garrison in Syria to help counter the Islamic State in the region. Guys, this is the straight out lie. First of all, the Iraqis asked the Americans to leave, and the Americans are like, no, we're not leaving. They're not going to leave. So Iraq officially asked the United States to leave the country. The parliament voted for it. But the Americans respect democracy, right, a lot. I'm being just sarcastic. So they said, no, we're not leaving. It's not up to you. It's up to us when we want to leave. So they're considered occupation forces in Iraq as well, just like in Syria. They are in Syria not to counter Islamic State. This is just a complete BS. They're here to help the cells, the sleeping cells of ISIS in the deserts, to fight against the Syrian army. In the past 4 to 5 years, since the Americans are stationed in Syria with troops, there was no attacks against American forces. All the attacks by ISIS are against the Syrian and so-called Iranian-backed militias there. This just makes you wonder. So, since we were speaking about this hypocrite Erdogan, this is him. When was this? This was maybe today. Yeah. So he is wearing the Palestinian kufiya, and he gives such a emotional. He comes to such an emotional event. I will just show you a little bit of it.
Hazır mıyız? Geliyor. Cumhurbaşkanımız Recep Tayyip Erdoğan geliyor. Cumhurbaşkanımız Recep Tayyip Erdoğan ve Şemin Erdoğan hanımefendi sizleri selamlıyor.
Man, this guy is so good in just exploiting and using the Palestinians to further his political points in Turkey, and then trying to convince the Arab world that he is with Palestine, and he does nothing for Palestine, right? Like literally nothing. This guy is just like a blah blah blah. And right. So what Erdogan said, he says, unfortunately, in Turkey, there are politicians who claim that just as Netanyahu is a terrorist, so is Hamas. They don't know what Hamas is. Today, some in Turkey see Gaza as distant from us, and they don't care about what happens there. Gaza was an Ottoman city nearly 100 years ago. For us, it was one of our cities, like Adana and Mardin are today. So this is exactly the point, guys. In Erdogan's mind, he's a neo-Ottoman. When he is speaking about Palestine, he doesn't see Palestine as an independent state. He doesn't see Palestine, he doesn't champion quote unquote Palestine so that Palestine would become independent and has its own statehood and everything. He champions quote unquote Palestine because in his colonial neo Ottoman mindset, he sees Palestine historically as part of the Ottoman Empire, and he is trying even to convince the Gazans that you are part of our empire, we can come and be your patron, like to occupy again. And that's that's not okay. And Palestinians also, just I'm being very sadly telling you this. There are so many Palestinians also that I met. They believe in this. Like they don't think that the Erdogan is an occupation if it's because he's an Erdogan, but Israel. No, both are occupation. You need your independent statehood. You need to become an independent Palestinian state. You shouldn't be living under Ottoman or Israeli rule. Anyways, but Erdogan is very clever and he plays on this so many times. He uses religion, he uses the Ottoman Empire time in order to sell himself as the savior of the Palestinians. He says, unfortunately, we were divided and separated by borders, and today they are trying to divide us with various temptations and games. Look closely at the statement of Israeli officials, and you will find plans of insult and betrayal directed at our lands as well. I confirm that Hamas is not a terrorist movement, and we will not be satisfied with the condemnation of what's happening in the Gaza Strip. Those who cried about injustice in Ukraine yesterday are today supporting Israel with blood on their hands. Israel won't last even 3 days without the support of Western countries. Turkey is preparing to declare Israel a war criminal to the entire world. Okay, do it. Do it. Stop talking, bro. Do something about it. I've been following Erdogan for since 2009 or 8 or something, and he's been just talking about the Palestinian case. What tangible support did Erdogan give to the Palestinians? Can somebody please tell me in the comments below? He's just a talk, an empty talk. Turkey is preparing to declare Israel okay. Western officials have become deaf and cannot hear the cries of the casualties in Gaza or the appeals of the UN Secretary General. Israel is committing a massacre in Gaza in the darkness, thinking that the world will not find out. So Erdogan, he says what the Palestinians and what the Arab people want to listen. He plays on this nerve. He knows that they're emotional. He knows that he can persuade them. He is very clever in that. But don't fall for it, guys. It's enough with Erdogan, also with Qatar. What is the real reason, guys, in your opinion, for these warships to the Mediterranean and to the Middle East? I've been speaking about it a lot recently, and I told you it's most likely because of Syria, and they want to come to Syria. They want to bomb Damascus in case this becomes a regional war, in case Hezbollah intervenes. And this is an article لإذاعة أحرنوت. إذاعة أحرنوت is an Israeli newspaper, and this is translated to English by the Saudi Sharq al-Awsat. And they say France relays Israeli threats to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So let's see what is this about. Israel has told the Lebanese Hezbollah party that it is not interested in the war, but ready to wage it if it is imposed on it. Political sources told Israel's Yediot Ahronot newspaper. It also made unprecedented threats, explaining that the war will not be waged according to Hezbollah's agenda and will witness several strategic shocks. Israel informed the party through France that if the party joined the ongoing war with Hamas in Gaza, it would resort to American power to suppress Hezbollah as well as confront and overthrow the Syrian regime, including the President Bashar al-Assad's personal security. You see? This is what I was telling you for in the past live streamings, and now it is confirmed by the Israeli Yediot Ahronot. The main goal, guys, for all these warships is not to deter Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a party. They are here for Syria. They want a strategic victory against Syria. They have failed miserably in the past 12 years. They want to finish the unfinished business. If this war becomes regional, the United States will bomb Damascus, and they will try, Israelis basically, they will bomb Damascus backed by the US, and they will try to assassinate Assad. And I will continue in this analysis in a video that I made today. Just stay tuned. So military sources told the newspaper that the direction or the decision announced by U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to bring the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford closer to the region was part of this threat. Not to deter, not to avoid the escalation and stop the expansion of the war, but it's a threat against Hezbollah and against Syria. This is in my opinion, at least be honest. This is an honest threat. Don't try to tell me you're here to deter or stop the expansion of the war. No, you're here to threaten Syria and Hezbollah. Okay. So, and what does this aircraft carriers carry? The huge modern battleship carries 38 F-35, F-15, and F-16 fighter planes and has a stockpile of 1,000 tons of weapons. It is accompanied by 4 small warships, a ship carrying missiles, and 4 nuclear war submarines, and is ready for combat. Guys, do you think nuclear submarines are in the Mediterranean to deter Hezbollah? Do you think we are idiots? Do you think that we don't know anything about this conflict? Are you serious? This is to threaten Iran, Syria, bigger powers. You have nuclear war submarines, you have F-35s, F-15s, F-16s, you have 1,000 tons of weapons, and you have smaller ships carrying over 200 cruise missiles. Are you kidding me? According to media leaks, a number of extremist ministers in the Israeli government are calling on Prime Minister Netanyahu not to wait for Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah to make a move. Rather, he must exploit the war to launch a preemptive strike on the party. Netanyahu has been cautious and thrown the ball in the Israeli army's court. I mean, if you ask my opinion, like my humble opinion, there is no way Netanyahu would initiate and wage a preemptive attack on Hezbollah. They know what the consequences are for that. They don't want for Hezbollah to intervene in this conflict. They want to singularly carpet bomb the Gaza Strip. So from the Hezbollah side, they have to draw a line. Where is the line? I don't know personally. My understanding is that if Hezbollah sees that Hamas is not able to cope in this conflict, they will intervene. But there is also the argument that I'm hearing that if Israel continues in this carpet bombing and it's like exterminating the Palestinians, right? The patience of Hezbollah might be over and they may intervene. But if Hezbollah intervenes, the Americans will intervene. They will come bomb Syria. Iran will intervene. So we're talking about, guys, regional war with international dimensions. Russians will definitely intervene if the Israelis or the Americans bomb Syria. It's their strategic ally. And they have huge interests in Syria. And they don't want for Assad to be overthrown or be toppled. They invested so much here, right? And one of the reasons why the Russians invested so much, because if Assad is gone and pro-American government is installed in Damascus, you know what's the first thing that is going to happen? The first thing that is going to happen, Qatar is going to build a pipeline, and this pipeline is going to pass through Jordan, Syria, Turkey, and from Turkey to Europe. So the goal here would be is to hit the Russian market in Europe in the future. If the Qataris manage to send their pipelines through Syria to Europe, there is no future for Russian gas markets in Europe anymore. They don't need the Europeans. They will never need it again. So that was one of the main reasons why they wanted to remove Assad. Assad said no to this project. He said, Russia is my strategic ally. I'm not allowing Qatar to build a pipeline through my territories to send gas to Europe, and I'm not harming my ally. So when Russia saw that Assad is in trouble in 2015 because ISIS was expanding, they came to help, and they participated in destroying ISIS, al-Nusra, and all these terrorist groups. Also, the Iranians participated, and Hezbollah participated, and all these parties fought shoulder to shoulder against these proxies of the United States, right? So in my opinion, if the Americans try to steal this strategic victory of this alliance in the region, they will intervene. And also, I mentioned this several times, and that's why Putin deployed the hypersonic missiles over the Black Sea so that they can hit the aircraft carriers of the Americans in the Mediterranean if the Americans dare to attack Syria or President Assad himself. So now I'm going to show you a video I posted today on my Twitter account. And I made this video just after this attack on Syria by the American forces. And I raised a very, in my opinion, important question, which is, what are American forces doing at the first place in Syria? Let's take a look together.
Well, Jennifer, this sounds like huge news.
Sean, we can report, based on senior military sources, that U.S. warplanes have carried out airstrikes tonight inside Syria against Iranian proxy forces. It is in response to the more than dozen strikes against U.S. bases. The message is a clear message designed to Iran and its proxy forces to stop carrying out these drone and rocket attacks against U.S. bases.
Well. The U.S. Air Force conducted airstrikes in Syria targeting what the Pentagon claims are Iranian proxies, a justification used for several years to paint the illegal aggression as legitimate in the eyes of the American people. Notice how the U.S. mainstream press on the left and on the right won't even ask the most important question. What are American troops doing in the first place in Syria? As a Syrian journalist documenting and monitoring the war in Syria since 2011, I can tell you that the successive administrations fooled you into believing that there was a peaceful revolution in Syria which turned into a civil war due to the quote-unquote brutal crackdown of the Assad regime against the pro-democracy demonstrations. But the truth of the matter is that the CIA engineered a covert operation in Syria in 2011 to topple Assad and install a puppet just like Zelensky through arming and training radical militants, including the Al-Qaeda affiliates. As the pro-American proxy forces failed and the pro-Syria coalition emerged victorious, the US sent its forces against the will of the Syrian people and against international law to occupy our oil fields to block the reconstruction process. Therefore, the US presence in Syria has been deemed occupation forces, and since Syria is a sovereign country, the use of force is permissible against the occupation forces under international law. Anyone who doesn't explain to you this context is dishonest and fooling you to push the warmongering agenda of the military industrial complex and the bankers in the US. So, guys, nobody in the American press is asking this simple question: what are the American forces doing in the first place in Syria, right? This is the most legitimate question. And I know, guys, some of you are saying that the broadcasting or the live streaming is not working on Rumble. To be honest with you, it's like something sometimes it's like out of my hands, you know? I just set up, I put the codes and the links and everything in the software and I broadcast it, and it's just working fine on YouTube, and then it's not working on Rumble. It's like, I really don't know what to do about it, you know? But thank you very much for your patience, and at least you can watch it now on YouTube. I just want to thank Daniel for his generous support, and also would like to thank Sam for his generous support. He says, as long as Russia has a base in Syria, they won't bomb Assad. I have no doubt that Russia has told Israel to leave Damascus out of this. I agree with you that the Russians will come in defense of Assad, however, or in defense of Syria and in defense of their own interests, right, in Syria. However, do not underestimate the Israeli madness now. The mentality that is governing Israel is crazy. And if you followed the comments and the statements coming from Israel in the past 2 weeks after the 7th of October, and you know that these people are like sometimes crazy, and they could go rogue. So we shouldn't underestimate this. And since we're speaking about this very important case, guys, which is the trying to hit Assad, right? I posted this today on Twitter, and just for the record, to set the record straight, I said there is credible information that indicates Israel, with the backing of the United States, intends to assassinate Syria's President Bashar al-Assad if Hezbollah opens a wide front from southern Lebanon. And I just put it in a proper context that in 2011, the United States waged a secret covert operation in Syria to topple Assad and install a friendly government in Israel. To achieve this goal, the US and its regional allies spent tens of billions in arming and training multinational Takfiri terrorist groups. According to the New York Times, the secret program, which was called Timber Sycamore, was one of the most expensive CIA covert operations in the history of the agency. This is not my talk. It's from the American mainstream media. However, Syria emerged victorious, and the terror groups were mostly destroyed with the help of Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah. While President Trump ended the covert operation in 2017, the Pentagon sent troops to the eastern shore of the Euphrates to occupy the oil and gas fields, and hence this allowed the Syrian government from using the revenues of the oil to reconstruct the war-torn country. The pro-Syria alliance believes the CIA's attempt to remove Assad was urged by Israel because a pro-Israeli government in Damascus means the isolation of Hezbollah and eventually the Palestinian militant groups fighting against Israel. With the escalation of the conflict in Palestine and the carpet bombing of Gaza, it is believed that Hezbollah has mobilized its elite forces and kept 1/3 of the Israeli army busy on the northern front by firing ATGMs and rockets at the Israeli forces. But if Israel wages a full-scale invasion of Gaza, it is believed that Hezbollah will intervene and wage a ground offensive on the settlements in northern Israel. If Hezbollah's offensive materializes, my information indicates that Israel will bomb Damascus and try to kill Assad. Will Israel dare to do that? This was one of the commentators now, Sam, who said they don't dare. I said, I believe with the current mentality governing Tel Aviv, everything is possible. And then I just note this for complete transparency. The above text is an analysis based on my personal knowledge and different sources. It is not wishful thinking or scaremongering. It is simply a political analysis based on the available information to me. And yesterday, if you watched the interview that I did with McAdams, I asked him this question, and also I included another segment of a video the second was Alistair Cook. You will see in this video that I will play to you now. He is a former British diplomat and a former MI6 agent, and he speaks about exactly the same thing that I told you guys about. And I want to document this. I posted it on Twitter so that everybody, just to keep the record straight, right? So let's take a look together of this. Just a second. Now, My question here would be, do you really think that all these forces and special forces are coming to the Middle East to quote unquote deter Hezbollah, or there is a bigger intention here? Because I will be very honest with you, I've been digging into the rabbit hole and asking people around, and my sources in Damascus say that they're very alarmed by this, and they think that the Americans, if this war expands, they will hit Damascus and also probably hit President Assad himself. I tried to double check this information in Washington, D.C., and I have a friend who has his contacts in the CIA, and they were affirming this information, that there is an intention now to finish the Syrian war once and for all. Then they consider it an unfinished business. So the question would be, do you really think that all these warships are coming to the Middle East only for to deter Hezbollah and destroy Hamas, or is it also directed to Syria and Iran?
I mean, if you think about the scale of what the U.S.'s military is doing, this mobilization of, I think, a total of 4 carrier groups and hundreds of cargo planes constantly flying back and forth to the region, depositing troops, depositing weapons. This is a scale that, we haven't seen since maybe the first Gulf War, the run up to the first Gulf War in 1990. And I find most astonishing about this is that, I mean, in a serious country, you would have Congress asking questions. What the hell is going on here? What are you doing? Where do you get this authority? What is the mission? But nobody is saying a thing. Nobody is raising a peep to something that could. I mean, President Putin of Russia said it just today. I think he said this conflict has every possibility of expanding outside of the Middle East region, and I think he obviously is not given to bluff. We know that from his past behavior. So I think he understands, as you know, they have bases in Syria, and they understand that they would probably come under fire as well. And what kinds of obligations might they have to their partner Iran if Iran is attacked? So no, I don't buy the idea that the U.S. is mobilizing a massive amount of military materiel just to deter Hezbollah. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Now, what I saw just before I came on again also, which is really quite concerning, is that apparently this is in Yediot Ahronot, the Israeli paper, and they are saying that that a French diplomat has passed a message to Hezbollah saying that if Hezbollah were to open the front in Lebanon, then Israel, and it claims with American support, will attack Damascus and take out Assad and all of the leadership of Syria. And it suggests that the aircraft carrier group that has been sent there would be in a position to take out the leadership of Syria.
So this is also confirmed by Alistair Cook. I will try to reach him out and also host him on Syrian Analysis. I think I can find his contact through some contacts in Beirut, and I think he still lives in Lebanon. And Sam is asking, can you have another chat with Scott Ritter about what will happen to Syria? I feel he would give the best analysis. I totally agree with you. I will send him an invitation, and let's see if he can come sometime next week, the time that he's fits. The problem is that Scotter is a very, very busy person right now, and he's receiving invitations from very big YouTube channels, let's say, with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and my channel looks like small compared to the opportunities that he's getting on other channels. So I will definitely reach him out, and I will ask him if he can join me anytime next week. That would be great. And one of the commentators says that he has to go to work, and thank you very much. He will come back later and watch it. Thank you for your following of Syrian Analysis, guys. It's a very, very important for me that you're watching and also following Syrian Analysis and sharing the videos so that the channel grows as well, and we become bigger. And it's very important when you become bigger that you can also attract, let's say, more important guests, right? It's very important that unfortunately it works that way. I wanted to show you an analysis I was reading today on Twitter, which is in my it's an analysis that we should take into consideration. We Not everything that we read is correct, but there is definitely an element of correctness in the analysis of this professional. Whatever the name is not important, but the analysis are, in my opinion, are probably on point. So he says this Al-Aqsa flood was meticulously planned operation by a group with intimate knowledge of their enemy. What that means is the planners didn't only anticipate Israel might retaliate with this current level of unrestrained brutality, they were counting on it. So, what are its goals? So, according to this analysis, Hamas knew that when they attack the settlements and there will be killings among the settlers, Israeli citizens there, they knew that Israel will attack the Gaza Strip in this brutality and carpet bomb it, and they wanted it according to this analysis. And why? So let's see why. He says the goal number one, expose the weakness of the Israeli offensive forces. He calls them Israeli offensive. Anyways, IOF. Expose the weakness of the IOF. The IOF relies almost entirely on air superiority. They cannot fight on the ground. By repelling IOF ground incursions, Gazans are demonstrating to their brothers and sisters in the West Bank that Israel is a paper tiger because the West Bank is occupied, right, by the Israeli forces. So, if you show to the Palestinians in the West Bank from Gaza that the Israeli armed forces on the ground they're unable to fight against the Palestinians face to face, you're encouraging them to increase the pace of their militant activities against the Israeli forces there. The goal number two is to draw in the participation of Iran. So they wanted for Iran to participate in this, according to this analysis. Iran's geopolitical survival rests on Hamas's survival. Iran's 2 decades long strategy of regional integration with Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen falls apart if they are seen to be abandoning one of their key partners. And I agree with that. Whether you agree with Iran or not, Iran has been building in the past 20 years a very big, let's say, a network of alliances between different parties from Iran in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Yemen. And if they abandon their allies in Palestine, what kind of signal does this send to the rest of the allies of Iran, right? So Iran is the main player here, and Iran is trying to network between different players in order to create an alliance that is anti-American in the region and eventually anti-Israeli. And the goal number 3 of this Hamas attack was strike when the US is overextended. So there is this element of the argument that the United States has been expanding since the end of the Second World War and most particularly after the fall of the Soviet Union. And if you see all the empires and the history of these empires, you will see that so many of these empires they crumbled and fell because they overextended and overstretched around the world. And with the 800 military bases around the world, and the Americans are trying to even expand through non-direct means, right? Soft power, for example, in different parts of the world. So the third goal was strike when the US is overextended, and they believe now the US is overextended. US global hegemony is the weakest it's been in a century, and I agree on that. Israel cannot persist without massive and continuous aid from the US, and the timing of the Al-Aqsa flood was chosen for a period of American financial and political prosperity. And I saw a new report the other day that the United States is now, I think, only in the past month, they are the depth of the financial depth of the United States has increased between 600 to 800 billion dollars, I believe, just in the past 2-3 weeks because of this recent conflict now in Palestine, Israel. And you have to know, guys, if you're an American, of course, the United States can print this money, but at the end of the day, this causes inflation, and inflation is also robbing the people. It's an undeclared tax on the people. So you will pay for this from your pocket, and the Americans will finance this war machine around the world. But this cannot continue indefinitely. At the end, the United States will go bankrupt, right? So this is the point that he's making, that despite beside the overexpansion, the United States is also in a very financial and political trouble. The goal number 4, he says, smash settlers' sense of safety. So when Hamas attacked on these settlements near the Gaza Strip, many of these settlers died, right? And there were scenes that we have seen of the people dying and in the party, etc. Overkill. So he says the Israeli colonial project ceases to exist without a steady influx of settlers from the West. By attacking these settlements, Palestinians struck at the heart of Israel's image as a colonial safe haven. I mean, there are lots of these people who live in these settlements in over Palestinian territories. They're from Europe, United States, Russia, different parts of the world. So if there is no safety, it's not a safe haven for these people to come and settle in Palestine. They will not come back if there is no sense of safety for them, right? So this is the 4th goal. And the 5th goal, radicalize youth worldwide. And we've seen this very clearly nowadays. The younger generation are very enthusiastic in defending the Palestinian cause, and I was personally surprised. So many people also on the left, which was more surprising to me, that they were supporting Palestine. He says, so the 5th goal is radicalize youth worldwide. An entire generation is being exposed to the true nature of Israel for the first time, learning its real origins as a violent settler colony with the full backing of Western governments, sparking one of the largest waves of protest in history. So I've seen protests and demonstrations for Palestine in London, in Paris, Dublin, Scotland, and different parts of the world, and they were with tens of thousands. They were really, really big. Last time I saw this big of a demonstrations were in 2003. When the invasion of Iraq happened. In Germany, they're canceling demonstrations every day. They're not letting the people to gather. Even if you're one person, guys, they're coming and stopping you from demonstrating for Palestine. I mean, there are probably 1 or 2, let's say, allowed demonstrations, but mostly they're canceling them, especially the last moment. I will show you just a few things more. Israeli spokesperson of the Israeli forces, they they posted this video message, and they say an urgent message for the residents of Gaza, and they're asking the people to leave northern Gaza to the south. Let's take a look.
Attention, citizens of Gaza, listen carefully. This is an urgent military advisory from the Israel Defense Forces. For your immediate safety, we urge all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to temporarily relocate south. Let me repeat. We urge all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to relocate south immediately. This is a temporary measure. Moving back to northern Gaza will be possible once the intense hostilities end. Hamas puts your life in danger by placing weapons and forces within civilians' area in Gaza, including schools, mosques, and hospitals. The impending IDF operation is set to neutralize these threats of Hamas with precision and intensity. Humanity remains haunted by the massacre unleashed by Hamas on October 7th, a massacre of innocent lives. Israeli men, women, children, and babies were beheaded, executed, raped, and burnt alive. We won't forget that. And the kidnapping of over 200 Israelis, we will not forget. To the residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City, your window to act is closing. Move south. For your own safety, move south. This is not a mere precaution. It is an urgent plea for the safety of the civilians in Gaza.
Guys, how can anyone stand in front of a camera and lie in a straight face like this? These beheaded babies, burned babies, how many times this was debunked and turned out not to be true? Even the Israeli forces, they couldn't provide any evidence for that. And they're still repeating it to justify this onslaught against the Gaza Strip and carpet bombing. You saw the footage at the beginning of this live streaming, right? And the very important question here is, sorry that I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. And the most important question is here, why on earth the Israeli spokesperson is speaking English to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip? Does he really think that the 2 million people to 2.2 million people in the Gaza Strip, they all understand English? I mean, it's so clear that this message is not even intended to the Palestinians. It's intended to the Western world to tell the people, look, we warned them, but they didn't leave. What can we do? Hamas is using the civilians as a human shield. So what can we do? Due to Hamas, we have to bomb the hospitals. We have to bomb the schools and the churches, even if they are belonging to the UN. It's all about Hamas, you know? What kind of crap is this? Why are you even talking English to the Gazans in and how do you even expect them to watch your warning if you cut all communication and electricity and internet on them? This is beyond propaganda, right? There is propaganda and there is beyond propaganda. The fuck? Sorry for my language, but you cannot really watch these things and not to be moved from inside by the brutality of this bombing on the Gaza Strip and at the same time coming and lying with a straight face. How can any person watch this and not see that this guy is lying? And why is he even speaking English to the Gazans and asking the question, how can the Gazans even know about this statement if you cut all communication, electricity, and internet on them? It's completely... Anyways, I'm not going to use any worse language. I was speaking about... Guys, it's already been 1 hour. Are you ready to stay 10 more minutes with me? Please let me know in the comments below. There is 2 things I want to show you. I wait for your comments just for a second. I was thinking about this cracked head, I would say, people in the United States who were... Yep, thank you guys. I will do 10 more minutes just to show you where are we heading to? These people are crackhead and they're driving the world into Armageddon and they are bragging about it on television and they're speaking about it as if it's something normal because they've fucked up ideology or whatever they believe in. They think that they have to create an Armageddon and that Jesus Christ will come for the second time and all this crap that I already talked about in the past live stream. And this is Michelle Bachmann, who at one point led the GOP primary polls in 2012. The Republican Party appeared on a prophecy update to discuss Israel. She says, there is going to be Armageddon. No, the host says there is going to be Armageddon. And she says they must depend upon the strong right arm of a holy God, says Bachmann, recalling her meeting with Netanyahu. Check.
Because ultimately we know the end of the story, and that is there's going to be Armageddon and they're going to march against Israel to try to force them out of the land. But from a foreign policy perspective, just give your opinion. Like, what do you think is going to happen in the weeks and months to come related to the pressure on Israel to give up more land?
Maybe in part, the reason the United States is suffering so much right now is because of the cursing that's come out from our official policy toward Israel.
Yeah.
And so we should never impress upon the Israelis.
Guys, I'm sorry that I want you to see these eyes. At the beginning, I was telling you that there are people who look like human beings, but they don't have a soul of a human being. This is one of the people. Look at her eyes and how cold she is. I truly wonder if she shares our same genes, like we're same humanity, or they're from a different breed.
To stand by. It sounds good, quote, humanitarian assistance, whether it's from the UN or the US or the EU. We have no way of knowing where the food or the water or any of the relief is going, because Gaza is Hamas. Hamas is Gaza. Yeah. These people, the Palestinians, need to be released out of the southern border at Rafah, at Egypt. They need to be released and they need to be sheltered in an Arab country until this conflict is over. That's real humanitarian relief. And that's why those of us who are believers in the United States, we have to pray. We have to pray and ask the Lord that our government would come into alignment with God's word and bless Israel and stop the cursing that we're currently doing in the United States.
That's exactly right.
Guys, so the Arabic countries should just accept and receive the Palestinians, and they have to create their entire Israel over all Palestinian territories. And the justifications are scary to me because it reminds me of ISIS and what they did to Syria.
Right, Michelle, and that's very well spoken. My perspective is, at some point in time, Israel has to preemptively strike Iran. I don't know how they cannot take care of that. They struck Iraq, they struck Syria from plutonium plant there. And so do you think at some point in time that Israel has to preemptively strike Iran, or what do you think is going to happen?
For Israel to do a preemptive strike, they essentially have to have tacit permission from the United States, because you need to have staging ground, you need to have bases. Israel's in a very difficult place, and then to expect them to go out and do a preemptive strike against Iran is unrealistic. It's just they can't do it without our help. We've got a lot of the satellite overhead architecture that they would depend upon to have something like that be successful. The most successful thing that Israel has is something that Prime Minister Netanyahu said to me in a foreign policy meeting that I had with him in his private offices in Jerusalem. And it was this. He said, Michelle, our foreign policy is miracles. It's been true for all of time. It's true now, and it will be true forever. But Israel understands, at least through Prime Minister Netanyahu, they must depend upon the strong right arm of a holy God. That is Israel's deliverer. And I'm sorry to say that the United States administration is not putting the United States in a place of blessing.
Guys, who are these people? I'm a Christian from the Middle East, and Jesus Christ came from the Middle East. He came from Palestine. So I am basically from the birthplace of Jesus Christ. And what these people are speaking about terrifies me. And these people who planned and waged the wars in Iraq, in Syria, they exterminated many Christians, and they forced the majority of the Christians to leave the region due to their wars. And their preemptive fucking wars against these countries, and now they're speaking about the preemptive war against Iran, just like it's a candy, you know? Who are these people? Soulless, evil people, in my opinion. And you already saw her eyes and his eyes. Those are cold blood. Like these people can see the murder of 100 people in front of their eyes, and they can just eat food while they're watching. This is type of mentality these people are, and they're not alone. I watched today this video. There is a contest in the United States right now among the politicians, among the candidates, on who is more deranged psychopath. Like, if you can prove that you are more deranged psychopath, you will gain the respect of Israel or the Israeli lobby more. It seems so to me. Look what this Ramaswamy says, I would love nothing more than for the IDF to put the heads of the top 100 Hamas leaders on stakes and line them up. It feels like there is a ISIS vibes here. Check.
I would love nothing more than for the IDF to put the heads of the top 100 Hamas leaders on stakes and line them up on the Israel-Gaza border as a sign that October 7th, 2023 will never happen again, and then to use all of those saved resources to build the border defenses of the future. But that is Israel's decision to make, not ours. That is what David Ben-Gurion would tell Israel to do. That is what George Washington would tell the United States to do.
So, guys, it looks like there is a contest and competition among the American politicians on who is more psychopath. right? And he went on Twitter again and he wrote this, which is more scary than what he said in this video. He says, "Now is the moment for Israel to return to its founding premise. The Jewish state has an absolute right to exist, a divine gift gifted to a divine nation, charged with a divine purpose. Israel has an absolute and unequivocal right and responsibility to defend itself to the fullest, applying the only language its adversaries understand, the language of force." And what would David Ben-Gurion say? Don't depend on anyone else's fleeting sympathies or permission to do it. If Israel wants to destroy Hamas, Israel should go ahead and destroy Hamas. If Israel wants to destroy Hezbollah, Israel should go ahead and destroy Hezbollah. If Israel and Mossad want pull off Munich 2.0 and take out every last leader of Hamas, wherever they may be hiding, from Doha to Dresden, and host a red wedding at the Four Seasons in Qatar, the next time Hania and Mash'al show up, they should go ahead and do it. Guys, these people need therapy, really. They it's like somebody should send them to psychiatry or something. And Brad says, "Are you some sort of religious nut job now?" This guy says, "You sound like a psychopath. This tweet will age well when the Zionist regime collapses and Netanyahu is tried for genocide. We will hold all collaborators like you to account." Anya says, "This is incredibly embarrassing." This guy says, "So suddenly you believe that Israelis are divine and should be worshipped and supported in their divine quest and granted gifts? Listen to yourself." There was one comment here. It's like because this Jeffrey Epstein was highly likely he was a Mossad agent, and he was bringing all these politicians in the United States to his island, to his pedophile island, and he was taping them while they were doing the things. Some other person also has. So this Ryan, he says, "So was it little girls or little boys? Which one did they get on you tape with?" It's hilarious, man. There is no country in the world where the politicians compete with each other and the candidates compete with each other. Like there is a contest of who is more psychopath and who is more warmonger, and who will be more pro-Israel than being a pro-American. You are running for the American presidency, not for Israel. I don't understand, why do they talk about Israel more than they speak about the United States? It's just mind-boggling for me. Anyways, I think this was all for today, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening to me. It's been an hour and 12 minutes anyways. Please share this video with your friends and on your social media accounts. And if you like to support my independent work like I'm doing right now, I'm planning on becoming fully independent and fully, let's say, full-time, create more videos like this to grow up, right? It's very important for me to have financial independence. We're living in a jungle. We're living at times that people like myself, we cannot find jobs. So if you want to buy me a coffee, it only costs you $2 per month. It's a great help for me and also enables me to continue and become fully independent. I'm 50% independent. I'm just being very honest with you. The link is here on the screen. Support Syriana Analysis on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. I would be very grateful and appreciative for you guys. And thank you very much for all of you. And also for those who sent me recently donations on PayPal. I will invest it, as I told you, to buy the pro version of this software as soon as I can collect the entire amount. And I will see you on Monday. Tomorrow is rest day, time with the wife. Ciao.